In this video, we will show you how to use the Ceramill Map DRS scan software 2.1. Opening the scan software will happen through the browser and the AG.Live portal. You can decide to either define the indication right away or decide to do that later after you have done the scan. In this case, we're showing a crown preparation on tooth number 26, and we are opening the scan software with the blue button on the right-hand side of the browser window. When first opening up the software, let's have a look at what the scanner icon does at the bottom left here. If there's no scanner plugged in yet, it will be grayed out. I will now plug the scanner into the laptop's USB port. If there is no tip connected, then it will show the shape of the scanner without a tip connected. Once I connect a tip, it will start to show which tip is connected. As there is a small tip and a regular tip, it will also display this. The small tip will have an S next to the icon, and the heating status is shown in different colors. Green indicating ready to be used, which is reached now, which is helping us to avoid fogging in the patient's mouth. When connecting your scanner for the first time, it makes sense to perform a color calibration, which will require the scanner to be around room temperature and starting the calibration process after connecting the scanner right away. I will show that now. So I'm connecting my scanner, and at the bottom left, I will go to Calibrate Color button. Once the scanner is recognized, it gives me this option to start the process. It will ask me to put on the color balancer onto the regular tip of the scanner, and it will tell me that it will take at least 12 minutes, and then I can press to continue and perform this color calibration, which takes the intraoral scanner through different temperatures and tries to bring the best result of the different temperatures in calibration to fit the visualization of the real patient information, so that the visualization is more realistic and more appealing to the patient and also the user what is seen on display. The color calibration does not change the accuracy or precision of the scanner, as the optic components in the scanner don't rely on any user calibration that needs to be done in regular terms. So it doesn't need to be weekly or monthly. The calibration for the precision and accuracy of the scanner is coming from the factory, and this color calibration does therefore not have an impact on the accuracy of the scan and just the appearance and visualization on the screen. Clicking on the scanner icon at the bottom left will give you additional information about the tip and also the scanner serial number, the tip serial number, so that the software detects which tip is currently connected if you have multiple in use in your clinic. The number of cases will be an indicator for the hygiene process, and the tip usage time is also tracked depending on the length of the session, which is also displayed on the bottom left with the scanner icon. One of the first things we are recommending in the software is to individualize the software to the needs of the user. This can be done by clicking on the settings on the top right of the screen, which is shown in the gear icon. In the general settings, the language can be chosen, the tooth number system, the different visualization styles for the color model and the stone models. 4 styles can be chosen here in order to fit to the user's needs. Scan settings will allow to turn off scan animations, choose to have the rendering of the model be calculated after scanning each layer. The benefit of deferring it to the end of the process is saving the dentist's time in the whole process. It can also be chosen to indicate low data density, and scan sounds can be turned off and on together with the alignment sounds. The live view size of the intraoral scan image can be chosen to be larger or smaller. Color settings will allow to individualize the appearance of the software by clicking the color that should be changed and choosing an individual color from the color palette. In this menu, it is also possible to reset the default values. The About tab will show the current version number, the sub-software components that are used in this software, and also the end-user license agreement. The scan layers on the right-hand side of the software allow for 3 different types for upper jaw and 3 different types for scans in the lower jaw, or 2 buccal bite scans. When you select the drop-down menu with Select Scan Layer, you can choose which scan layer you would like to add and which ones are already in use. Once they are chosen, you can add them by clicking the plus icon. And for my case here, I will also select to add a second bite. After I've added these catalogs, I can move them according to the workflow I want to apply. First scan I will do is the pre-op upper in my case, and I can then start the scan by clicking on the top scanner button as described at the top left in the text field, and I will also follow the scan animation that is shown on the display in the middle of the screen. So first I will do an occlusal sweep. In the front I will tilt through the anteriors in order to get a return point when I am losing my scan, so that I can always return to the occlusal surface that I have already scanned here. On my model, I also have a bridge restoration, which for now we don't need to pay attention to, as we have chosen to restore tooth number 26. I will fill in all the information according to the scan animation, and if I want to add any information at any point on the model after I've completed the scan, I can move to certain areas to fill in any gaps. In order to perform the next scan, I can now use the bottom scanner button. This will now move me to the lower jaw, which I can scan in the same manner I have now scanned the upper jaw. When I'm selecting the bite scan, I am asked which bite scan I want to use for aligning my bite. In my case, I want to use the pre-op upper, as at this stage the injection of the patient might still not have been applied, and the bite could be more correct as the patient is not biting down on anything and has a good feeling of which bite is balanced for his jaw. Asking to have the patient bite down, then I can scan his bite from one side. I'm hearing alignment sounds. Once the software has recognized the bite alignment, in this case now I have completed this, patient still holds his bite. I'm getting a check image. With the lower scan button, I can now move on to the next bite. It will ask me again which jaw I want to align it with. I'm using my pre-op scan for the alignment. Now I'm also getting a sound. The alignment has worked, and I have completed my scans before the preparation. Now I have switched the tooth on my model, which basically means I have now prepared tooth number 26. I am moving to the upper jaw scan here, and now I will show you 2 methods in order to complete this scan, as now we could add information to the upper scan and wait for the software to find an alignment. When I'm scanning this area, it will be giving me a sound signal again, which just came up as a click sound that will signalize, okay, I have found the correlation of this area with the rest of the model. Here I'm just filling in all the relevant information for the contact points for this restoration, and this would be sufficient information for my scan of the preparation. Another approach would have been that I would copy the area that I have had in my previous scan. So I will delete this catalog here by clicking the X. Then I can right-click, duplicate this scan area. Since I don't have an upper jaw in my list anymore, it will give me the choice to select upper. Here's my upper jaw, which now I could modify with the eraser tool that is available here. I can change the size of the brush and erase the area that I want to rescan with the eraser tool and then rescan that area and keeping the alignment that we have had in this area. I will turn off the eraser tool again, wait for the camera to be ready, finding its point. You just heard that click sound, and then I can fill in this information similar to what I've done before. So these two approaches are available to you in order to fill in the data for a pre-op catalog. I now have additional tools as well with the scissor icon that I can see here, which requires a generated model. So therefore it's giving me a feedback that it is generating the model right now. And this scissor tool will allow me to cut my model into different pieces and always keep the larger piece in place. So here, if I cut away the smaller part, it will always keep the bigger part. You can then also use the undo and redo buttons in order to move forward or backward. If I want to delete the whole scan and redo it, I can choose delete all data in the scan layer. This can be also confirmed with either the bottom button in order to cancel or the top button in order to say, okay, I want to cancel the information contained in this area. Now I could just rescan it, waiting for the click sound in order to make sure it was recognized again. Making sure that all the contact points can be filled out. And then there is one more tool that we can show, which is the log tool area. So you can log certain areas that should not be changed in a scan. No matter what happens, this is especially useful if you have gingiva forma or implant cases where you want certain areas to stay the same, even though they could be moving. Also, when there is any kind of hemostasis used around the prep area and you want to keep a certain area used. You can also unlock certain areas. So if you click this unlocking feature, you can now paint and erase the areas that you want to lock, or you can choose to unlock all of the area in order to clear these locked areas and moving out of the tool again by clicking the tool here again. We're now getting to the last explanations that are helpful for scanning. We do have an icon here which says model mode off, so that we can also turn model mode on. This means if I'm scanning in the patient's mouth, I would not use this mode, but for example, if I'm using it to scan from a model, it makes sense to turn this on as it will change the scanner lighting. Then there is the possibility to use shade assist. This makes sense for intraoral scan images to make sure that a certain area can be chosen to decide which shade is present. As on my model, I'm not using real teeth. It gives me a bleach color here, which you can then set with left click, and you can set different points in order to have a good communication together with your lab. Take a screenshot from that and also upload it with your case. You can toggle with this icon at the bottom left to have color turned on or off, so either color model or stone model. And you can also use the view area for low data density in order to highlight certain areas that don't have sufficient data, but sometimes this might not be relevant. As for this prep, I'm only looking at the contact points and the area of the prep, so here we would be fine. In the Control tab, we can check the scanned data and alignment to each other. On the right-hand side, we can turn the different layers on and off in their visibility. We can make them more transparent, and we can also check to turn off the color and see a bite heat map that would indicate any penetration or contact points that should be balanced over the arch of the patient in order to check if the real-life situation is matching the situation of the patient in terms of contacts. The Mark tab will now allow us to mark our margin either by drawing a margin or by just indicating the tooth number. For that, we need to choose the scan layer which we want to change. I would recommend to zoom in, and then we can select the tooth number, in our case tooth number 26, and by double clicking we can set reference points on the margin that would then allow us to mark the margin around the prep line. The color information helps us here to indicate where we need to be. With the right mouse click we can move the view, and we can finalize by double clicking on the beginning of the margin line. Now we can also add further points by clicking on the line and dragging these yellow balls into the right direction. Some users also like to switch to a view that could be seen from analog impressions in order to verify where the margin is lying. And the view of the software allows you to see which tooth number is now marked. If you want to change that, you can right click, either delete the margin completely or edit the margin info and select a different tooth in this case. The Finish tab summarizes all of the performed scans, gives us an overview of which files will be exported back to AG.Live, and also gives an overview of which tooth numbers and preparations have been indicated so far. Another option that is given at the bottom of the screen is to include the STL with the export to AG.Live. This can be selected here, and then we can press Finish and go to AG.Live. Once the scan software has closed and exported the files, we can reload our AG.Live site, and we can see the different file types that were showing up in the Finish tab that are synchronized into our AG.Live window, where we can now share the case with our laboratory, or if we decide to do so, continue in the chairside workflow with a chairside CAT. As for tips and tricks, I wanted to show you some information that could be helpful when scanning. For that, I will just add a pre-op lower by adding with the plus icon. I wanted to cover the different check marks that you can see in the scan layers here, as the blue check mark indicates the alignment with the bite, and we can see a yellow check mark which indicates the alignment of the upper jaws to each other. So this upper jaw is not corresponding to the bite, and only through the pre-op upper was aligned with the bites. And the same goes with my newly created pre-op lower that will now wait for data. So the check mark is not filled in fully, and I will wait for the click sound that tells me that the alignment has been found. And something else that I wanted to show you with this is that you can take intraoral scanner images of the live view size with the lower scan button. So you will also hear a sound when you take those scans. And more information I wanted to give you is with navigating with both scanner buttons, pressing them at the same time will allow you to turn the color on and off. You can skip through those different menus by pressing the bottom scan button, and you can accept, for example, color mode here, that I will turn it off in order to see contours better with the top scan button. I could also delete the model and start from scratch. I can generate the model, and I can also use the data density view in order to see if I have sufficient information in all of the area.